And now, broadcasting from deep behind enemy lines in the occupied territory of the Socialist Republic of California, your host, former California State Assemblyman and Governor candidate, Tim Donnelly.
Well, you know what I'm going to say today. If you watched the State of the Union, it wasn't even remotely relevant. The speech was a campaign commercial for Barack Obama and progressivism. But, you know, the real legacy of Barack Hussein Obama is not going to be the stuff he bragged about. It's not going to be the stuff he lied about in his speech last night, because the real legacy was being seen halfway across the world in Iranian waters as American sailors were being forced to kneel in submission before the Iranians. And this whole thing, if you've been following it at all, that's Obama's legacy. The fact that world leaders have no respect for the American military, they have no respect for America. The president that was going to save us from the likes of troglodytes like George W. Bush and others can't save himself from the embarrassment on the night that he's giving the State of the Union address for the people that he claims he has this great relationship with. And by the way, the Iranians want to wipe Israel off the face of the earth. They literally, when they get the nukes that Obama is helping them to get with the treaty that he is working on with them, he is returning $150 billion to them that was seized back in the Iranian hostage crisis. And here we have another hostage crisis. Now, admittedly, it didn't last very long because they used it for their own propaganda. They used it to embarrass and humiliate America before the entire world, but specifically in front of the Muslim world, I believe. And it is clear and it is unequivocal that if you wondered how Barack Hussein Obama will be remembered, if you maybe got caught up in some of the rhetoric last night, and we're going to walk you through the speech, but let not your heart be troubled, because I can tell you right now that Obama will be remembered in much the same way as Jimmy Carter for his failures, for his taking out America and reducing her to her knees, and for viewing this country as not a country of exceptional Americans, of exceptional people, an exceptional nation on the face of the earth, but instead of viewing America as the aggressor, America as the imperialist, America as the enemy. That's his legacy. And unfortunately, here's the sad thing, because we can survive in Obama, but we can't survive a growing electorate that thinks he's a good president. That's disturbing. The people that were tweeting, "Thank you, Obama, for the last 8 years or 7 years or whatever." Even if you like the guy, even if you think he is the greatest progressive of all time, all you have to do is look around at the carnage. I mean, you've got race relations in the toilet. You've got more so-called mass shootings, mass killings under Obama than anyone else. And you've got an economy that, while it's not going completely backwards, is completely stagnant. He was bragging in his speech about how many people are off the unemployment rolls. What he didn't tell you is how they got off the unemployment rolls. They got off the unemployment rolls by completely giving up on working, by dropping out, by becoming homeless, by no longer being counted. That's how they got off the unemployment rolls. It's funny. I mean, it's simple math, really, but I guess they use the Common Core math there in Washington, D.C. So if you have X number of unemployed, and then you add X number of jobs, and every time you see the stock market crashing because the job market, the employment outlook is dismal. And when there's robust economic growth, the employment outlook is always good. Meaning more people will become employed, less people will be dependent on the government, more people will be paying taxes into the coffers of the government. So you have sort of a win-win situation. You're able to keep everything afloat, and you have a lot of people who will not be taking. They will not be receiving from the government. They will be contributing. And in Obama's world, it's a good thing when people just fall off the map and they're no longer looking for work because they've given up. They've been so discouraged. Many of them are going to wind up on some form of government assistance or private assistance, but they're not where they want to be. As a matter of fact, many of these people are unreachable. They've just given up on America altogether. They've given up on themselves. They've given up on the future. That's Obama's legacy. But see, nobody will say that in the mainstream media. They're too busy gushing over him. And he's bragging about how he, and others, let me not say Obama, but his, because he didn't say anything about Iran. He almost said virtually nothing about the San Bernardino massacre, the most significant terrorist attack on U.S. soil since 9/11 that took out 14 innocent Americans. He didn't say anything. He didn't even go into the whole gun control thing. He sort of just brushed it all by as if, hey, that was last week's news. We're on to something new. Meanwhile, entertaining and lecturing once again Americans that we need to not speak ill of people who might be different, people who have a different religion, a different faith, or they look different. That whole line of pablum is simply a way of saying, hey, shut up about the Islamic fundamentalists. Stop correctly identifying that virtually all of the terrorism in the world is rooted in Islam. All of the terrorism in the world is rooted in the Islamic jihadism movement, the Islamic you could even call it I think John Guandolo calls it the global jihad movement, but it's not Catholics. It ain't Baptists. The stuff we used to see between the UK and Ireland, that's over. This is all coming from one place, but he won't talk about it. And that right there leaves a lot of Americans scratching their heads. And then when Iran treats our military personnel with such disrespect, forcing a woman to wear a hijab. She is a sovereign American citizen. She is not a citizen of Iran. She is, and if you're going to have a treaty, that means you have to observe some rules of the world, some societal rules you have to respect. And Iran didn't treat them with the respect that we would have treated someone if they had gone into our waters. First of all, we wouldn't have made them kneel and treat them like an enemy. They are treating us like an enemy. Is anyone missing that? I don't know. I want to get your take on that, because I put a post on Facebook and I'm being roundly vilified in some corners and praised in others. But we'll take a quick break and be back with a whole lot more, including we've got Maria Espinoza coming up. She is candidate for Congress in Texas with a great story. 323-746-TALK. We're going to be playing clips for you from the president's. Let me correct myself. from Obama's speech. He does occupy the office of the president, and occupy is the correct word for what he is doing. Look, I'm going to read you at risk of being criticized by a broader audience. I'm going to read you my Facebook post because let me lay out the setting. You've got, sorry, I got to get all this junk out of the way here on the Radio Free California Network studio desk. So I put up a Facebook post. There are these photographs of our sailors kneeling on board a ship. Evidently, they're on an Iranian ship. They've been captured, and there's a whole lot of confusion whether they had mechanical failure, whether they were, as the Iranians say, spying, whether they were drifted into, Iranian waters and were no longer in international waters. All of that, we may never know what really happened, but this is not how you treat individuals with whom you are looking to form any sort of an alliance or treaty. Because there's no mutual respect involved. We've seen a video now of one sailor who was forced to apologize for their mistake of getting into Iranian waters and admitting it, and then saying how wonderfully they've been treated. So you have an element of this that is clearly being used for propaganda, and for it to happen in the week when Obama's about to give them back $150 billion, when Obama is working on a treaty that will ultimately give the Iranians the ability to build a nuclear weapon within a decade. That's what we're really talking about here. To see Americans essentially subjected and humiliated, it infuriated me. So I'm just going to read you my post. I put up the photograph of our sailors kneeling on this deck of the ship, and I also put a photograph of them where they are, and you can just see this at my Facebook, Tim Donnelly, and you can feel free to comment there. Maybe I was too harsh. I'm thinking of changing a few words, but might not be the words most people want. There's also a second picture where you have a female sailor who has been forced to wear a hijab out of respect for the country that she's in, even though she didn't go there by choice, and there has been no mutual respect shown, or they never would have made them kneel the way that they're kneeling. They look like criminals. So I wrote, Obama's legacy will not be the lies and pretense from last night's speech. It will be this: bringing America to its knees and humiliating us before our enemies. This picture is an insult to all those fine young men and women who put their lives in harm's way for our freedom. F Obama, F Iran, and if the stupid, worthless Republicans don't stop Obama's Iran giveaway now, F them too. Now, I've had some people that are Republicans get really upset that I called the Republicans stupid and worthless. Look, I don't mean all Republicans. I mean the leadership. And maybe I should modify. I think I will, but anyway, I'll be happy to take your calls if you want to criticize me and tell me. The first comment on the entire thing sort of set the stage, and it was from a man that I met in on the other side of the country, who said that. Let me find it here. Just give me a second. There's been a million comments on this thing, and it's not coming up. I'm having this just irritates me. I feel like the NSA gets into our database, our computers, and messes with us just when we're about to make a great point. Okay, I got it back. Hold on. So let me read you the first comment from a man on the other side of the country. He said, "You're a Christian man, and this is how you're going to speak in public. People look up to you. I suggest giving them a better example. No disrespect intended." So I wrote, sometimes the right thing to do and say is not something that would be considered acceptable in most of America's weak-kneed and neutered churches. But I will not apologize for loving America too much. And I will not tolerate seeing her subjected to such humiliation. And by the way, I put asterisks in the cuss words out of respect, but my sentiment stands. Anyway, that provoked quite a conversation about the whole thing. I would love to know how you feel about it. What do you think about this whole thing? And I guess you could call it the overnight hostage crisis. Thank God it didn't last as long as the one under Jimmy Carter. But see, I would posit that because we don't have a strong president, it invites disrespect. It invites this kind of treatment, this humiliation of our sailors. And it's being done and it's being broadcast throughout the entire world to send a message. Hey, the United States is weak. It's time to attack. And I personally believe that Obama, as smart as he thinks he is, was simply used as a tool by the Islamic jihadists worldwide, the global jihadist movement, to make it look like America, through its military, by them kneeling, that they are submitting to Islam. That this is the game plan that the Iranians have is much more sophisticated than anything that Obama could muster, and it just ticks me off. And by the way, if you ever follow my Facebook, you'll know that I never cuss. I don't use cuss words. I don't go out there and put words like that in a public post. But I don't know how else to communicate the sentiment accurately, the level of anger and outrage, and there's no other way to bring the intensity of how I feel, which is clearly how a lot of Americans feel, over seeing our sailors. And picture that this is your son or daughter. I have a son who is serving in the Coast Guard, and many of you and many of my friends have sons and daughters and nieces and nephews or neighbors who are serving in harm's way in the military at a time that arguably we have a president who, through his incompetency, through his weakness, has created more conflicts than he's resolved. Even though he's bragging about how he's fixed everything in the world, it was on display last night. And in my opinion, in my humble opinion, Barack Hussein Obama's legacy is in that photograph. So check it out, and we will take your calls when we come back from this upcoming break. And I'd like to get your opinion. And also we'll let you call in about the speech last night. But there were no real surprises, even though we'll walk you through as much of it as we can that is relevant, and some very interesting moments have emerged in a real insight into the mind of Obama, if that's what you wanted. Anyway, 323-746-TALK. We'll take your calls when we come back. Hey, you're listening to the Radio Free California Network. I am your host, Tim Donnelly, former California State Assemblyman and radio governor here in the state of California. 323-746-TALK if you want to weigh in on either my post or Obama's speech. We're going to play you a little bit of it just so you can get a sense and a feel. This is how it started. I'm going to give you about the first 5 or maybe even 7 minutes of it, just in case you missed it. Here it is.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Vice President, members of Congress, my fellow Americans. Tonight marks the 8th year that I've come here to report on the State of the Union. And for this final one, I'm going to try to make it a little shorter. I know some of you are anxious to get back to Iowa. I've been there. I'll be shaking hands afterwards if you want some tips. Now, I understand that because it's an election season, expectations for what we will achieve this year are low. But, Mr. Speaker, I appreciate the constructive approach that you and other leaders took at the end of last year to pass a budget and make tax cuts permanent for working families. So I hope we can work together this year on some bipartisan priorities like criminal justice reform and helping people who are battling prescription drug abuse and heroin abuse. So, who knows? We might surprise the cynics again. But tonight, I want to go easy on the traditional list of proposals for the year ahead. Don't worry, I've got plenty. From helping students learn to write computer code to personalizing medical treatments for patients. And I will keep pushing for progress on the work that I believe still needs to be done. Fixing a broken immigration system. Protecting our kids from gun violence. Equal pay for equal work. Paid leave. Raising the minimum wage. All these things still matter to hardworking families. They're still the right thing to do. And I won't let up until they get done. But for my final address to this chamber, I don't want to just talk about next year. I want to focus on the next 5 years, the next 10 years, and beyond. I want to focus on our future. We live in a time of extraordinary change. Change that's reshaping the way we live, the way we work, our planet, our place in the world. It's change that promises amazing medical breakthroughs, but also economic disruptions that strain working families. It promises education for girls in the most remote villages, but also connects terrorists plotting an ocean away. It's change that can broaden opportunity or widen inequality. And whether we like it or not, the pace of this change will only accelerate. America's been through big changes before. Wars and depression, the influx of new immigrants, workers fighting for a fair deal, movements to expand civil rights. Each time, there have been those who told us to fear the future, who claimed we could slam the brakes on change, who promised to restore past glory if we just got some group or idea that was threatening America under control. And each time we overcame those fears. We did not, in the words of Lincoln, adhere to the dogmas of the quiet past. Instead, we thought anew and acted anew. We made change work for us, always extending America's promise outward to the next frontier, to more people. And because we did, because we saw opportunity where others saw peril, we emerged stronger and better than before. What was true then can be true now. Our unique strengths as a nation, our optimism and work ethic, our spirit of discovery, our diversity, our commitment to rule of law. These things give us everything we need to ensure prosperity and security for generations to come. In fact, it's in that spirit that we have made progress these past 7 years. That's how we recovered from the worst economic crisis in generations. That's how we reformed our healthcare system and reinvented our energy sector.
I don't even know. Let's stop it right there, because it's a train wreck already, and we're only about 7 or 8 minutes in. And where do I begin? He makes some weird reference to fears of the future, and or of some group that represents a threat. And see, he's talking about Muslims, he's talking about black people, he's talking about Hispanic immigrants, anything he can use to denigrate, to raise the xenophobia label that they love to raise. By the way, all the left-wing papers praising him for his pushback against Trump and his xenophobia, and they love that word. Let me just take that one word just for a minute. What is xenophobia? It's not a fear in its current context when it's being used to criticize those who have a rational concern over immigrants who come from regions of the world where they regularly talk about killing Americans, where they regularly talk about stamping out the West and annihilating entire countries and wiping people off the face of the earth. Because why? Because we don't believe the way they do religiously. So when you call me a xenophobe for having a rational concern over letting 300,000 more potential terrorists into my country without any better vetting. I mean, the government has screwed up so badly under Obama, and it probably would have been the same under almost any other president, except that maybe it wouldn't have been as bad because Obama appointed someone who said, hey, we're going to be politically correct, and we're not going to actually target Islamic jihadist fundamentalist groups. And so they pulled back their scrutiny of the San Bernardino terrorist. So right there, I've got a huge grudge. I'm ticked off at him taking this swipe at Americans who have a rational concern, and perhaps it concerns us in our community here more than the rest of the country. But I think a lot of Americans feel that way, because they see themselves in the San Bernardino massacre. Those were just ordinary people who went to work. They were at work. They were at a Christmas party. They weren't off on the battlefield somewhere. And when he denigrates an entire swath of Americans with a comment like that, and never addresses the real issues, never gets into, hey, by the way, we screwed up. So but it's State of the Union, right? He should have said, hey, we didn't want to offend Muslims. So when they wanted to immigrate here, we got all excited and we were like, wow, let's not actually look at their Facebook pages. We're going to make a policy. We don't look at anyone's social media. And that might have been a problem, because Tafshin Malik, the jihadi bride of Syed Farouk, got into this country, and she was obviously part of the alchemy that set him off. Maybe she wasn't the only reason. Maybe he was already radicalized, as people like to call it. He delved deeper and deeper into his fundamentalism. But in the end, Barack Obama's government failed to protect Americans, and 14 innocent Americans died. And the president, in his State of the Union, didn't bother, didn't want to answer any of the tough questions. Hey, I would have respected him. I would have given him a moment of respect if he just said, look, we screwed up. And those Americans are dead because of this, in part. Two things. One, the policy of not looking at social media because they would have kept Tafshin Malik out. And number two, the policy of pulling back in the Department of Homeland Security because the Civil Rights Division didn't want to offend the so-called civil rights of Islamic jihadist groups because they were Islamic. If he'd said that, we'd be making progress towards something. Instead, he insulted you. And as far as I'm concerned, the group that represents the greatest threat to me is the same group that is supposed to be protecting and safeguarding our rights. And that is the government. Okay, I'm gonna get out of this segment without cussing. I promise. I'm just gonna go to a break. We're gonna continue this. We'll take your calls, 323-746-TALK, but don't call until you hear the music coming back. Whatever you do, stay tuned. Hey, welcome back to the show. We are going through Obama's speech for you, special, because, a lot of you might have had better things to do than watch the last dance of Barack Obama. And in fact, I left the studio, went and watched my son play basketball and hung out with a bunch of great Americans. And I got to tell you, that was far more rewarding than actually subjecting myself to it live. I then, just in preparation for the show, forced myself to actually watch it. Thank God for YouTube, because you can start it and stop it. And there were things that as I was taking notes, I was saying, wow, did he really say that? So I'm really glad that I did that. I missed the opportunity to live tweet it or broadcast it, and via Facebook and whatnot. But you know what? It was a lot more fun watching my son sink a free throw and play basketball with his friends. I'm going to go to the phones real quick. We got Mike in Wrightwood, who's been holding patiently. Mike, welcome to the show. Mike, are you there? Huh, that's strange. Maybe we'll just restart that system. Anyway, let's go ahead and go back to the actual clip that I was playing. We're going to continue to hear what Obama was saying in the first few moments. But actually, give me a second here, because did you hear that part where he said commitment to a rule of law? This is the guy. I had to write some notes. What a joke. This is a guy that has done more to undermine the rule of law. Rule of law meaning that we are all subject to the same law. And we know clearly that is simply not the truth. All you have to do is look at DACA and DAPA. These are acronyms for basically letting illegal alien kids in, illegal alien this, and illegal alien that. If you've been an illegal alien and you're a nice illegal alien, according to Obama, the law doesn't apply. And of course, once you do that, once you create sort of an executive amnesty, a lot more people are going to want to come in and take advantage of that same carve out and that same exemption, and that creates more illegal immigration. So when it comes to undermining the rule of law and supporting the rule of law, Obama, that was a joke. I mean, I was just, I wish there was a guy there that would have yelled out, "You lie!"
Calling Studios host.
Anyway, let's continue to roll the tape of Obama, and then we'll get back to the phones after this break.
That's how we delivered more care and benefits to our troops coming home and our veterans. That's how we That's how we secured the freedom in every state to marry the person we love. But such progress is not inevitable. It's the result of choices we make together. And we face such choices right now. Will we respond to the changes of our time with fear, turning inward as a nation, turning against each other as a people? Or will we face the future with confidence in who we are, in what we stand for, and the incredible things that we can do together? So let's talk about the future. And 4 big questions that I believe we as a country have to answer, regardless of who the next president is or who controls the next Congress. First, how do we give everyone a fair shot at opportunity and security in this new economy? Second, how do we make technology work for us and not against us, especially when it comes to solving urgent challenges like climate change? Third, how do we keep America safe and lead the world without becoming its policeman?
This guy just makes me laugh every time, every few phrases. Anyway, we'll get more into this, take more of your calls when we come back right after this. Yeah, sometimes it feels like we're about to fall into the shiny sea, but we're still here. This is the Radio Free California Network. I am your host, Tim Donnelly, former California State Assemblyman and radio governor here in the Golden State. Going to go back to the phones and see if we can pick up a call. Give me your first name and city, please.
This is Maria, Houston, Texas.
Hi, Maria. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing well, Tim. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I've got you loud and clear. And this is Maria Espinoza, who is running for the 7th District in Texas, running for Congress. Did you, Maria, I hate to put you on the spot, but I'm sure you watched it last night or watched it today, but what was your reaction to both the president's speech and also the absolute disrespect that our sailors have been treated with in the last 24 hours?
Yes, Tim, thank you. I watched parts of it this morning, and, I can only stomach so much of Mr. Obama. But obviously, it's as expected. He totally ignored our sailors, and, it shows you what this president has done to the country. We're weak, and other countries have no respect for us. It's actually a very dangerous situation to be in. And, those sailors should never have been detained. I don't know that, they had mechanical problems or, but this is outrageous.
There seems to be a lack of respect. And maybe I don't know enough about, military protocol, but it would seem to me that if you're not in an open active war with someone, you wouldn't treat them the way that our men and women were treated. But that maybe I'm overreacting. I don't know. I guess I'll err on the side of standing up for our...
I'm with you on that, Tim. I think it's indicative of how other countries are taking advantage of the United States, and you can point right at Mr. Obama and his lack of leadership.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in his speech last night, one of the things that he made a point about, and you're running for Congress, so this is going to be a big issue for you, is he talked about how Obamacare had basically fixed the entire VA and we're getting great medical care for our returning troops. And I just wanted to throw something at my computer screen when I heard him say that, because I wasn't watching it on TV. I was watching it today on YouTube. We have one of the biggest crises in this country with the VA, with those who have already served our country, not even able to get the medical care that we've promised them.
Yes, that's a sad situation, and I blame him, of course. And he does not like our military. He doesn't like our veterans, and he continues to lie. How a grown man, an official, a president, can lie to the public, and they still believe it. Parts of the country still believe him, but I think all your listeners understand that this is a big lie.
Well, and you're on air in the greater San Bernardino area where the latest terrorist attack took place. So as a candidate for Congress, tell me your views, because I know illegal immigration is a real big issue for you, even though you are Hispanic. And I don't know why the Republican Party doesn't want to embrace Hispanic candidates that are tough on illegal immigration. But you, for years, have documented the carnage and the loss and the pain and the deaths caused, to the loved ones of Americans at the hands of illegals. But I want to shift it just a little bit. We'll talk about that in a moment. But in particular, right now, we're faced with bringing 300,000 Muslim immigrants into the United States with the current broken system that allowed a jihadist terrorist who came in here and participated in killing 14 of my neighbors and people in my larger community, including someone that lived a couple miles from where I am right now in a little tiny town up in the mountains, a man that had 6 children. And would you vote or would you support a temporary ban on Muslim immigration so that we can get a handle on this? Where do you stand on that?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I would, if I'm elected to Congress, Tim, I would say to halt all immigration right now. We have to first clean house, find out who's here, and make sure that illegal aliens are not on social benefits. That needs to go to those who have paid into the system all their lives. Our aid must be going to the veterans, like you mentioned, and people who are disabled and need some help. But I believe that we should stop immigration, find out who's here, and we have to understand that bringing in refugees, we cannot vet these people, Tim. So, and there's no reason why we have to bring people here. If there's a problem in the country, I believe that we should also look at U.S. foreign aid as well. If whatever help they need, it could be done over there in their country, not bringing them here. That's not the answer. There are so many people who want to come here, but that's not a reason for the United States to simply allow anyone to come into our country and hurt our citizens, hurt and kill our citizens, but also be on our resources. I mean, we're going downhill, Tim. Yeah,
absolutely. And look, I'm talking about a temporary ban so that we can figure things out, get a better process in place. Yeah. Because what we didn't work, isn't working, and has put Americans at risk. It's that simple. But I'm not opposed, ultimately, to immigration from Muslim countries, especially when you have Muslims who are fleeing persecution. You have a lot of Christians fleeing persecution. But there seems to be this built-in prejudice now within our federal system against Christians fleeing Muslim countries. Mm-hmm. And so of the 2,000 we accepted since 2012, I think it was something like 2,034, some 95 or 98% of those who we let in were actually Muslim and not Christian. And that boggles my mind. And I think there's some serious issues there. But let's move on to you. I want you to give me just a sense of the 7th District there in Texas. Give us a little idea about your race. You're going up against another Republican, is my understanding, and you have a passion to get into the Congress, particularly, and correct me if I'm wrong, to address the issue of illegal immigration.
Yes to all the above. Yes, the incumbent is the Republican. He's a career politician. He started out in the state house for 14 years, and then he is in Congress now for 14 years. And he had voted for the omnibus both times. And yes, I am concerned about immigration, but let's take a look at this too, Tim. Immigration is the single issue that touches every other issue, that affects every other issue. So, if you're talking about the budget, you look at how much money was allocated to addressing illegal aliens and illegal immigration. It's a large amount.
It was like 1.68 billion, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, going just to relocate illegals throughout the country to make them more comfortable. I mean, come on.
Yes, and look at the 55 judges that we're going to add and their staff. Each judge gets a staff as well to address illegal aliens, immigration issue, and we're also looking at the agents are going to be hired. There is so much that goes in, and also battered women's, the victims, domestic violence. But it also talks about illegal aliens. So I wonder how much that's going to Americans. And I heard a story there in California that a homeless mother was looking for shelter. And she called several shelters, and no one would take her in. And the only reason, if she was an illegal alien, she would have been taken in. And this is what one of the agencies told her: if you were an illegal alien, we could take you in.
Because they probably get federal, they get federal matching dollars. Hey, let me take a quick break, and we're going to be right back with Maria Espinoza, candidate for Congress in Texas 7th District, and we'll continue to take your calls. 323-746-TALK. Hey, welcome back. We're talking with congressional candidate for Texas 7th District, Maria Espinoza. She's been an activist for years, exposing the truth about illegal immigration. She is Hispanic, you can tell with the name Espinoza. And, of course, that deeply offends the Republican Party because they want people to be pro-amnesty, and, she doesn't fit the bill. And so therefore she's a threat. Anyway, I'm bringing on John from North Carolina, who either has a question or a comment. John, welcome to the show. John, you there? We're having some trouble with John. Anyway, Maria, so talk to us about your platform. What are you running on? And how do you see yourself winning this race?
Yes, Tim, and pardon me because I'm driving right now, so I'm trying to watch the road.
No worries. That's a sign of a busy, hardworking candidate. We're fine with that.
Yes. Multitasking. Yes. Yes. My platform, and thank goodness, is very strong on immigration and the border issue and what is taking place right here on the ground. Because my opponent, John Culberson, he voted for the omnibus, like I mentioned, and he funded Obama's executive amnesty. He funded that dangerous sanctuary city policy, funded Planned Parenthood as well, and to expand the refugee resettlement program. So, that was, his vote was like a gift to me before my race here. So right now he's busy in Houston, which is about 77% Anglo, and I would say about 17% Hispanic. So it's a affluent, large district. He is busy trying to do a bit of damage control and trying to convince people that this was a conservative win for his vote on the omnibus. So, I do have an uphill battle because you mentioned, of course, the establishment trying to stop me. And there's another faction that put in a young man who has absolutely no experience. And as you know, I will hit the ground running. And this is a grassroots effort, truly a grassroots, Tim, because, again, I've got both sides against me. But
Sure.
I'm very strong on the issues that Houstonians want to know the answers, and I've got the answers. And so, I direct them.
You've got a great website. It's let me find. Give me your website, because I was on it a little bit earlier and I was really impressed.
Yes, I was going to just give that to you. MariaForAmerica.com.
Oh, that's easy.
MariaForAmerica.com.
That's brilliant. So you're out there working, you're raising money, you're talking to people, and you're reflecting the issues that they're concerned about. And I can tell you right now that, and I don't know how it is in Houston, but I can tell you how it is here in California, and I can tell you I talk to conservatives from all over the country on a daily basis. There is an outrage and a seething anger at Rhino GOP candidates or congressmen who voted for the omnibus, who voted to fund Planned Parenthood, who voted to fund Obama's executive amnesty without a fight. Here they have the majority, and they didn't even wage a fight. And so that certainly gives you a wedge in the door. But unseating a 14 years, so that's 7-term congressman, is not going to be an easy battle. But I've noticed you seem to be getting endorsements every day. How are the people receiving you out there when you're out there on the stump talking to people?
Very well. Of course, I'm pretty passionate, Tim, and they certainly see my work. Having met with the Department of Homeland Security Secretary about this issue, asking him to secure the homeland, and we met with former Attorney General Eric Holder, Committee Chairman Bob Goodlatte, and we have an open door to some of the solid conservatives there. But yet, you're right. I have an uphill battle, and it's becoming more and more evident every day because, we're grassroots, and I don't have that, big money, establishment money, business money that's easy for the others to, attain. So, I just ask all your listeners to please send in $20, $50, anything that you can afford, and please help my campaign. We have been blessed, Tim, where some of our literature, has been discounted. So, in-kind donations up to a certain amount. So, that's wonderful. But you're right. It is going to be an uphill battle, and I'm trying to do my best to get in front of as many people as possible. We will be
that's the
block
key.
Walking.
That's the key. You got to walk it door to door. You got to go to meetings. You got to go to churches. And look, you were smart to ask my audience for money, and I'll say it. Hey, if you like what Maria's saying, you need to support her, because she's going in there to fight that battle that all of us are ticked off about out here. And Maria, I want to thank you for joining us today. I know you're busy there in Texas, but keep up the fight. Don't lose hope. Don't lose faith.
Yeah, thank you. And you too. And I know you've been in this situation as well. So, I really appreciate that, your help and letting me come on. So thank you very much. And thank you for
uphill battles are my specialty. Anyway, Maria Espinoza, MariaForAmerica.com is her website. And as I said, check her out. Maria, thanks for coming on. Godspeed to you. And we'll check in with you later. And for now, we're going to take a break here in a couple minutes. But look, I mean, a lot of people would never even think of doing something like that. And that's why I encourage you to check out her website. She's got a great website, great family, and you can tell she is one of us. She is an ordinary person who has decided to put herself out there for office, and that is a calling in and of itself, because you all of a sudden you're going to be attacked and vilified and all these things, all because you really are just trying to do the right thing. And I can tell you that in my battles, there is the best part of it is meeting the people who will support you, and because you learn from them, you hear the ideas, and you can take what's in their hearts and figure out a way to incorporate that into your platform and into your plans and into your talks so that more people come alongside you, and it can be done. I mean, we've already seen it. We've seen complete unknown candidates take out David took out Goliath, Eric Cantor, who was in leadership in the Republican House, and he was taken out by a guy who did it the way Maria's talking about doing it. So certainly is a doable prospect. It won't be easy, but nothing worthwhile is. And we're going to continue to go after Obama on this speech and just lay out for you what he says he did for America. And we'll take more of your calls when we get back. 323-746-TALK. Hey, welcome back to the show. If you are wondering what you've stumbled onto, this is the Radio Free California Network. And we are going to go back to the phones. See if John from North Carolina, let's see if the NSA will allow him on air. John, welcome to the show.
Oh, I hope so. And that was my bad earlier. I just wanted your guest to finish her thoughts because I really wanted to hear what she wanted to say, and I'm multitasking here tonight, so I politely hung up to give her time on your show.
No worries, John. We thought there was something nefarious at foot. Maybe the Iranians were after us. I don't know. But anyway, what was? Give me your take. You obviously called with a comment.
Well, yeah, and I'm jumping a little bit ahead of the where you're at in the address last night. But there was two things that really struck me, and the first one was when Obama said, "Chances are, if you have a good job and benefits and a lifetime job, you're sitting in this room."
Yeah.
Did you happen?
Oh yeah. That was on the list of clips.
Okay, yeah, and I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit, and you can hang up on me this time, and I can wait to a later date or a later time and call back. But that really sat me right up in the couch. That's when it's time for some term limitations. And the other one was all the people that kind of looked to be asleep. I don't know what was going to happen with Uncle Joe, but when they panned down on those those generals and those military guys, they were all looking around like, are we supposed to stand up? I don't think they wanted to. My opinion, I don't think they wanted to, but they all looked at each other and like, yeah, I guess if we're going to stand up once, now's the time to do it. And that just kind of struck me as odd too.
Yeah, there was a lot of strangeness and a lot of camera angles floating around looking at people, and they never introduced or said who the people were. And I was like, okay, why? And then I saw the generals looking really confused, and it just seemed so inappropriate, all of it. And but I'll tell you what, when he said that there's a bunch of people in this room who have a 30-year job and, guaranteed health care and, retirement and everything else, they groaned in that chamber. Yeah.
And that hit me like, it hit me right at the top of the head. I was like, you know what? That's the reason. And I'm for term limits. I really am. And when they pan around with Lindsey Graham and the name.
Wait, no, you can't say Lindsey Graham. You got to say, Lindsey, don't vote for me, Graham.
Okay, Lindsey, don't vote for me, Graham.
And by the way, it's funny, he drops out of the race before they come to his home state of South Carolina. That's where the debate's going to be tomorrow night. And I think that's going to be an interesting debate because of you had Nikki Haley, the governor of South Carolina, take on the GOP frontrunner, Donald Trump. She took him on by name today. And she's got Reince Priebus, I guess the titular head of the Republican Party nationally. And you've got, what's his face? I can't remember his name. Oh, yeah, Jeb Bush, the guy who's like in last place. I think he bought his way into third place in one poll. But he's saying, yeah, Haley's one of my best friends. She's wonderful. And I grimace because what we're doing in the GOP, instead of saying, hey, whoever wins, we're going to get behind, they're tearing and trashing one particular candidate who is the only chance really to grow the party.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Anyway, John, go ahead.
I like Nikki Haley too, but have you checked out the Facebook picture, the comparison between Eddie Munster and Paul Ryan? That's on a funnier note. It was hilarious.
No, I didn't see that
on my computer. Oh, it's hilarious. They got a picture of Paul Ryan and a picture of little Eddie Munster from the Munsters with his little point way his hair. I wish I had hair like Paul Ryan. Don't get me wrong, but that little hair comes right down to a point. It's a hilarious comparison.
Oh, my gosh, that sounds priceless. I'll have to check that out. Yeah. Unfortunately, this is not a TV show, so we can't show it. But
no.
I'll see if I can find it and put it up on my Facebook.
The comparison is hilarious, and the guy I work with, he's on the same page. We talk politics all day long, and we're both on the same page, so we just thought that was hilarious. But anyhow, yeah, if you get a chance, check it out.
We'll check it out. John, thanks for the call. Thanks for checking in. And we're going to go to Mike in Wrightwood and see if we can bring Mike on. Hey, Mike, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks. I listened to that last night, and the first thing that really irritated me, and I'm sure that irritated everybody who's, been wounded, who served, and who's seen family members die in Iraq, was a comparison to Iraq and Vietnam. In Vietnam, a government decided to close down any attacks and just flat out say, we're not going to allow you to win. In Iraq, we went in there and destroyed them. And on December the 31st, 2012, this so-called president stood in front of the nation and in front of a military installation and said, you have done a mission and your mission was completed and a success. Now, all of a sudden, because he screwed up, didn't follow what the intel community had told him, now all of a sudden he compares us to Vietnam like we were losers. And that really kind of went out of the way. And then when he talks about, what we need to do or how we're going to do things, it's very simple. You let people do their job. You let people, that give you good information, give it to you and accept it and make it done. But you don't pat yourself on the back. And I thought it was kind of funny, whether, I know it wasn't meant the way he might have said it, but when he talked about the threat of, terrorists, and he said, just ask Osama bin Laden, a lot of us in the intel community had a question about that because we don't believe that he was tossed at sea because it's not in the Quran. And there's nobody on that ship that wrote a book like the people that attacked him did. So my question is, well, why don't you just prance him out here and let us ask him? Because I don't think you really took him out. I think you got him placed somewhere.
You think he's still alive?
Playing games. Yeah. And if he's not, then he should be labeled as the stupidest president of the United States that's ever seen, the stupidest leader of any free world, and the chance to destroy and wipe out an organization like that who runs off of the fact that you got these guys that are heroes out there doing this stuff. But to me, one of the reasons why, there's a confusion on whether or not the general should have stood up is because the United States military, while in uniform, has absolutely no rights to stand up. They are not supposed to stand up. They are not supposed to participate.
They're supposed to be impartial. Hey, and
you are not allowed to do that.
Mike, I got to take another call, but I want to, as I say goodbye, I want to make one clarification. When you said, that he basically compared you to losers, I know what you meant, and what you meant was that it was the government that lost that war, certainly not our troops on the ground. I'm going to pick up another call here. Give me your first name and city, please, if you would.
Yeah, this is Bill in Phelan, Tim. How are you doing?
Hey, Bill, I'm doing great. How are you?
All right. Listen, there's something that came up in that address the other night that nobody, including Rush or Sean, or nobody's picked up on yet. And it was a very, very quick thing, but I think it's important to mention that when Obama was talking about maybe having to do something about the fairness of our political process, and he was talking about PACs and billionaires with lots of money that are able to put money into candidates to kind of buy them into office, more or less, or buy them into a position to be elected. Now, the one thing that he slipped in there, he said also the unfairness of political families. Now, I might not have the words exactly right, but he did say political families. In other words, saying that we don't live in a monarchy and there's no room for political dynasties. Now, he could have been throwing that at the Bush family, because Jeb Bush is in, and to a lesser degree at Ron and Rand Paul.
But you think maybe Hillary Clinton?
Yes, he can't say that phrase because everybody in the press, everybody in the press has been talking about all of these subtle things that were thrown at Trump. Well, you couldn't even throw that at Trump because he's not in a political dynasty, and he's a first time in. So you have to be throwing it at Hillary in order to be fair.
I think you picked up on. I didn't pick up on that. That's a brilliant point. And you know what? I think it was a dig at Hillary. Wow, you had to really be paying attention to catch that, but that's hilarious.
I watch these things in great detail now, Tim, because I'm very concerned with the way our country is going, and it's got to change.
I was watching it in great detail too, but I still missed it, and so did Rush, and so did Hannity. So kudos to you, Bill. Thanks for the call.
Yeah, go back and.
I will. I didn't mean to cut you off there, but I'm going to take one more call before the break. Hey, welcome to the show. Give me your first name and city.
This is Jay from Barstow.
Hey, Jay, how are you?
Fine, great. There are two things that made me stand up when I heard his presentation. The first one was when we got our lecture on how not to mistreat those followers of Islam in America.
Yeah, we haven't even got to that in the playing. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up.
The FBI statistics for 2014, which is the last full year of investigation of hate crimes related to religion, indicated that 52% of the investigated hate crimes had to do with those directing their dislike towards the followers of Judaism, not Islam, and only 16% were directed to those who were hostile towards Islam. So
interesting.
And it just, of course, looked the other way, like it doesn't happen with other folks. And in fact, it happens 3.2 times more often with those who are followers of Judaism.
Wow.
The second thing that's based on FBI statistics, 2014. Sure. The other one is that your previous caller, the lady who's running for Congress in Texas,
yes.
There has been a precedent established between 1924 and 1965. There was no legal immigration allowed into the United States. Only after 65 was it allowed.
That's true. We had a moratorium.
That's right. And the whole purpose was to get those who had immigrated between 1870 and 1920 to get them and their first-generation children assimilated to American culture. So
good point there, Jay. Yeah. Hey, thanks for the call, because you both you and the previous callers brought up points that I hadn't really picked up on and that makes it that helps me to better inform the audience. Anyway, thanks for the call and thanks for listening.
You're welcome, sir. Bye.
We're going to take a quick break, and we'll come back with more of your calls and more of the speech. But I am going to slip a little bit of Trump in there, because Trump responded to the speech and the backlash against or from Nikki Haley, who went after him in her rebuttal. You know, I'm reading on the break, and there's a headline, and this makes the point Jay from Barstow was making just before the break. 580 students at a Buffalo, New York high school. And I'm not going to tell you the answer because I want you to guess. I don't know if, people would like to call in on this and guess, but guess how many languages are spoken in 580 students is a small high school. That's a small school. I mean, I went to a school about that size, a little private school. most public high schools in our area were 2,500 students and up. Anyway, 323-746-TALK. If you can guess how many languages are spoken in this tiny little high school in Buffalo, New York, and it'll give you a sense of why we need a timeout and we need time to assimilate. That previous policy may actually be called for today. I mean, it's every time you turn around, you got to deal with a whole nother issue. How do you teach? How in the world do you teach in a high school where 42 languages are spoken? Now, of course, I would assume the vast majority are competent in English. Otherwise, how would they even be able to learn anything? At any rate, we'll see if anyone guesses, and if not, I'll tell you after the break at the top of the hour. But going back to the race, there's some very interesting things happening. We've got Ted Cruz coming out of nowhere. I guess all the hoopla over his natural born citizenship is not hurting him. There's an interesting article in none other than the New York Times. Headline is Ted Cruz starts to crack GOP establishment's wall of opposition. Some in the old guard have started signaling to their reluctant right of center brethren it is time to face the possibility that the hard-line Mr. Cruz could be their standard bearer. If Cruz makes it, which is very doable, every one of the establishment crowd who is now eviscerating him will line up, salute smartly, and get on board, according to Miss Maitland, who is a consultant, offering a mix of prodding and prophecy. No one will want to be responsible for a GOP defeat. Let me tell you something. That ain't the way the establishment works. And it just isn't. And what they will do, some of them will actually go and support the Democrat. Some of them will fund a PAC to demonize and destroy and undermine Ted Cruz. They're not all going to line up smartly. I hate to tell her that Mary Maitland is dreaming. She's out of another century. Politics might have worked that way in the past, but they don't work that way now. And but there are a certain number who will get behind the GOP candidate simply because he's GOP. But they're ignoring the ugly elephant in the room, which is there is a war, a civil war brewing within the grand old party. And you have conservatives who are sick and tired of being sold out, of being attacked and vilified and demonized in primary after primary after primary. They have their candidate outspent and destroyed by an establishment hack who pretends to be a Republican but doesn't share any of the values with the conservatives. And then once the election's over, they expect the conservatives to come running and the wounds to be healed without actually doing anything to heal them. And that's happening all over the country. It didn't just happen in California. It happened in Mississippi with Senator Chris McDaniel, who was running for U.S. Senate up against a GOP hack. And some people from the top of the party came in and ran some of the most atrocious ads against him. So you've got all kinds of things that are happening. When we come back, we're going to bring you a clip from Donald Trump, who is getting into this very issue. Anyway, we'll be right back. Hey, you are tuned to the Radio Free California Network. And yes, I am your host, Tim Donnelly, former California State Assemblyman and radio governor here in the state of California. I said I would go to the phones, and I am going to keep my word. Going to the phones. Give me your first name and city, please.
This is Tim in Barstow, California.
Hey, Tim, how are you?
Good, and yourself?
I'm doing great.
Good.
reason I called was today I was at work today, and the kids had the radio station, The Duck, on.
Right.
And the DJ was on there. Check this out. The DJ was on there, and he was like going on about Vanilla Ice. And he says, I ain't afraid of ISIS. The president's right. Donald Trump's Vanilla Ice. I ain't afraid of nothing. The Vanilla Ice is all wrong. And I could not believe the stuff he was saying. Then he started in about people trying to stop people from voting back in the South. And I was thinking, well, what about in Baltimore when the Black Panthers were threatening people?
Well, Tim, you know who was keeping people from voting in the South, right?
No, I'm beyond that one.
Well, they were Democrats. They had white hoods on. They were in a group called the Ku Klux Klan, the KKK. That was all Democrats who wanted to keep slavery. And they were really, really angry when slavery disappeared, and they wanted to get revenge on, and they hated Republicans, by the way, because the whole Republican Party was established to be an anti-slavery party. See, people have forgotten their history, but when Democrats today talk about Jim Crow, they're talking about their own party. It was not Republicans that supported the apartheid in this country. Anyway, Tim, thanks for the call. We're gonna actually play a clip of Donald Trump weighing in on this, the whole divide within the GOP, and he makes a few comments about the State of the Union address, but in particular how he was targeted by not only Obama, but by the Republican Governor Nikki Haley, who was responding, and it's kind of an interesting clip. Here we go. We'll have that for you in a minute, but going back to this whole divide within the GOP, there's some who think they're just going to wax it over, and I'm here to tell you it is a very deep and ugly rift. And I mean, when you have the likes of Jeb Bush is like Hillary Clinton in that he just believes it's his time. And so you have Speaker Paul Ryan, you have Jeb Bush, you have Reince Priebus, you have all these establishment hacks, and they're like, we're going to put Nikki Haley out there to do a hit on Donald Trump, as if Trump is somehow not even a Republican. It's like they want to disown the guy. And anyway, let's see if we can get that clip going through.
When politicians insult Muslims, whether abroad or our fellow citizens, when a mosque is vandalized or a kid is called names, that doesn't make us safer. That's not telling it like it is. It's just wrong. It diminishes us in the eyes of the world. It makes it harder to achieve our goals.
He mentions this,
who we are,
but he never even mentioned San Bernardino, where 14 people got killed. Good Lord.
Nationally, amongst the Republicans, joins us right now from Florida on the phone. Donald Trump, it sounds like the President of the United States does not like you.
I would say that's probably true. He probably does not. Not very important to me, but I would say he probably doesn't.
What's your reaction to his veiled threat or the veiled shot he took at you?
Well, he doesn't mention the radical Islamic terrorism. He doesn't want to use those terms. He doesn't want to talk about it. And if you don't talk about something, you're never going to solve the problem. He doesn't want to talk about California, what happened there with the 14 people killed, viciously killed by the two radicalized people. He doesn't want to talk about what's going on in the world, the real facts that are going on in the world. He's living in a fantasy land. I think this man is living in a fantasy land. So, he mentioned that. Again, he didn't mention my name, and perhaps he was talking about somebody else, but some people think he might have been talking about me.
Sure sounded like it.
And we want to make sure we're leading from a position of strength rather than a position of weakness. And breaking just as we went to air this morning, the 10 Navy sailors that had been held in Iran have been set free, essentially, and they're heading home. There's a BBC report out this morning, Mr. Trump, that says we apologize to Iran because of a territorial waters violation when their navigation system malfunctioned. If that's the case, should we have apologized?
No, we shouldn't have apologized, and they shouldn't have held these people at any point. And, it's just days before we're giving them hundreds of billions of dollars in one of the dumbest deals in the history of our country. I think it's a disgrace. And they probably said, we better let him go, this dumb guy that's leading the pack and the whole group of people. I mean, John Kerry, one of the worst negotiations I've ever seen. And they're getting hundreds of billions of dollars. And they probably said, let's let these guys go. We'll keep them the next time. Normally you would have said, let's help them out and let's get their, whatever it is, navigation equipment fixed up and get them out of here. They held them, and they only let them go because they want to collect the money because they're not stupid people. That's for sure. They're certainly not stupid, especially compared to what we have negotiating. So it's very, very sad that they held them at all. They shouldn't have. What they're doing essentially is they're taunting us. And they continue to taunt us. They also had some missiles go off right next to one of our ships the other day. And, they continue to taunt us because they feel we don't have very much leadership, which, of course, they're 100% correct about that.
And this is before we wrote the $100 billion check. Can you imagine after they cash it, we'll lose all our leverage? But they said that the president did say, I avoided a war by cutting this deal.
Well, let me just tell you, if they had the money, if the money was already there, they would have kept these people. They would have kept them. Hey, they already have our 4 hostages over there right now, including a minister, a wonderful guy from all accounts who's a pastor, and he's there because he's a Christian. But they already have 4 people that should have been gone as part of the deal before the deal even started. You wouldn't have even started the deal until they were left.
Mr. Trump,
it's just inconceivable what they're doing.
You would not have even known that we had this crisis going on yesterday because the President of the United States did not mention these Iranian hostages, just sprung this morning, at the State of the Union. Nikki Haley was given the tasked by the establishment Republicans to give the response to the president. It sounded like, took a swipe at you last night. She said, during anxious times, it can be tempting to follow the siren call of the angriest voices. We must resist that temptation. Was she taking a shot at you? Here's what she just said on another channel.
He was one of them, yes. He was one. There's other people in the media. There's people in my state. I think we're seeing it across the country. But, yes, Mr. Trump has definitely contributed to what I think is just irresponsible talk.
How do you respond to that?
Well, I respond a couple of ways. Number one, she's very weak on illegal immigration, and, I've known that for a long time, but she's weak on illegal immigration, and she certainly has no trouble asking me for campaign contributions because over the years she's asked me for a hell of a lot of money in campaign contributions. So, it's sort of interesting to hear her. So, perhaps if I weren't running, she'd be in my office asking me for money. But now that I'm running, she wants to take a weak side on immigration. I feel very strongly about illegal immigration. She doesn't. And I think the people in her great state, I love her state. I'm there a lot. And by the way, I have a massive lead in South Carolina. We have a massive lead, and they're incredible people. And they feel like I do, believe me. They feel because they don't like what's happening in our country.
And Mr. Trump, you'll be there tomorrow for the FBN debate in Charleston. But there has been some buzz about South Carolina's Governor Nikki Haley being a potential VP running mate for whoever wins the nod, and that she's a rising star in the party. That's why they picked her to give the rebuttal last night. I'm guessing your answer to this question is going to be no, but would you pick her as a VP running mate?
Well, considering I'm leading in the polls by a lot, I wouldn't say she's off to a good start based on what she has just said. So, let's see what happens. We'll pick somebody, but we'll pick somebody who's very good. But whoever I pick is also going to be very strong on illegal immigration. We've had it. We've had it with illegal immigration, believe me, this country, and a lot of other things, especially when you look at what's going on and the Iran deal and all of the money that goes out, and we get nothing for it. So we've had it with a lot of things in this country.
Well, she has been strong on bringing down jobless numbers, bringing back tens of thousands of jobs to South Carolina, and education reform and a number of accomplishments. But you say she's weak on illegal immigration. Thank you, Mr. Trump.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, go campaign.
Go campaign. Hey, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll take more of your calls and get deeper and deeper into Obama's State of the Union and your reaction to it. Hey, welcome back. We're going to get more into Obama and his State of the State of the Union. I don't know. He didn't really much talk about the Union. He talked a lot about himself. He talked a lot about his plans. He took credit and basically said everything is great. The economy's wonderful. Veterans are all being taken care of. He completely glossed over every major problem that is ongoing that has been made worse by his administration or became such an eyesore, such a huge, massive problem on his watch, and yet he never. It's as if he's completely detached from reality. But let's pick up where we were before with the speech.
Our auto industry just had its best year ever. That's just part of a manufacturing surge that's created nearly 900,000 new jobs in the past 6 years. And we've done all this while cutting our deficits by almost 3/4. Anyone claiming that America's economy is in decline is peddling fiction. Now, what is true, and the reason that a lot of Americans feel anxious, is that the economy has been changing in profound ways. Changes that started long before the Great Recession hit, changes that have not let up. Today, technology doesn't just replace jobs on the assembly line, but any job where work can be automated. Companies in a global economy can locate anywhere, and they face tougher competition. As a result, workers have less leverage for a raise. Companies have less loyalty to their communities. And more wealth and income is concentrated at the very top. All these trends have squeezed workers, even when they have jobs. Even when the economy is growing. It's made it harder for a hard-working family to pull itself out of poverty. Harder for young people to start their careers. Tougher for workers to retire when they want to. And although none of these trends are unique to America, they do offend our uniquely American belief that everybody who works hard should get a fair shot. For the past 7 years, our goal has been a growing economy that also works better for everybody. We've made progress, but we need to make more. And despite all the political arguments that we've had these past few years, there are actually some areas where Americans broadly agree. We agree that real opportunity requires every American to get the education and training they need to land a good-paying job. The bipartisan reform of No Child Left Behind was an important start. And together we've increased early childhood education, lifted high school graduation rates to new highs, boosted graduates in fields like engineering. In the coming years, we should build on that progress by providing pre-K for all and offering every student
He slips a little socialism in the mix. You should be thinking of more spending, a lot more spending.
The hands-on computer science and math classes that make them job ready on day one. We should recruit and support more great teachers for our kids.
And here comes the big one.
And we have to make college affordable for every American.
How does the government make college affordable? How does it do that? He really means free, so somebody's going to pay for it. Don't look now. Don't look in the mirror, but it's you.
No hardworking student should be stuck in the red. We've already reduced student loan payments by to 10% of a borrower's income, and that's good. But now we've actually got to cut the cost of college.
What does that teach you? I'm sorry. What does that teach you if student loan payments are 10% of whatever your income is, as opposed to you pay back what you borrowed? Simple as that. I mean, there's these two schools of thought. One teaches you socialism. The other teaches you responsibility and accountability and ownership of your own life. I mean, I got student loans. I paid my way through a private high school by working. Then I paid my way through college, and it was a lot of money. So I did get student loans. I got help from you, from all of you who are taxpayers. You know what? I don't think it's remarkable that I paid it all back and that I paid the interest because it was extremely low interest. They had grace periods for you to get out of school and get a job. It was a good system. It was like the people, like they believed in me. And so I wanted to make good. Well, what is this? The government's going to make college more affordable? The government doesn't know how to make anything more affordable. The private sector does, but the government always ties the hands of the private sector so that the government can grow bigger. And the bigger government grows, the more of a piece of the pie it's going to take out of your income. But they're going to tell you they're doing all kinds of wonderful things for you, but they're just stealing more and more of your money. And I think a lot of Americans have a real issue with the government doing everything, the government getting bigger, the government getting more and more involved in their lives. And yet Obama's dream, which he wants somebody to carry on, he doesn't say who, sounds a lot more like a job for Bernie Sanders, who, by the way, is beating Hillary in at least 2 states. And so I don't know that that Obama's prepared to hand the baton on to her, but he wants to continue spending, and he wants to lay out a vision for the next 10 to 15 years beyond his presidency. I mean, why can't the guy just go retire somewhere and just leave us alone, for God's sake? Anyway, we'll have more, unfortunately, Obama. And also, I've got a clip of the sailor who went on there and made an apology. I want to get your take on that when we return. Hey, before we go back to more of the tyrant-in-chief with his last dance here, I would like to play you we've got a clip of the sailor who was, I don't know if he was coerced or whatever the deal is, but he went on, allowed himself to be videoed and apologized to the Iranians for whatever he's apologizing for. I'll let you be the judge of that.
It was a mistake. That was our fault, and we apologize for our mistake. It was a misunderstanding. We did not mean to go into Iranian territorial water. The Iranian behavior was fantastic while we were here. We thank you very much for your hospitality and your assistance.
I don't know what the genesis of that is. I don't know what the military protocol for that is. I was never in the military, so I am not one to really have any ability to speak about it. But I know a lot of you are or were, and I'm curious what you think about him doing that video, because it basically is being used by Iran as propaganda. And, you know, I always thought when you're when you're captured, you give your name, serial number, and there was some sort of protocol that said you're supposed to hold within these parameters. But this delivered for them exactly what Iran wanted, and then them being released today allowed Obama to go out and brag about how brilliant he is as a foreign policy strategist. All of it, I find all of it disheartening and despicable. Just seeing our sailors used in such a despicable manner, humiliated before the entire world, and it just doesn't sit well with me. Anyway, 323-746-TALK if you have any insight or any opinion on that. Meanwhile, we'll go back to yes, Obama.
2 years
he continues.
College at no cost for every responsible student is one of the best ways to do that. And I'm going to keep fighting to get that started this year. It's the right thing to do. But a great education isn't all we need in this new economy. We also need benefits and protections that provide a basic measure of security. It's not too much of a stretch to say that some of the only people in America who are going to work the same job in the same place with a health and retirement package for 30 years are sitting in this chamber. For everyone else, especially folks in their 40s and 50s, saving for retirement or bouncing back from job loss has gotten a lot tougher. Americans understand that at some point in their careers, in this new economy, they may have to retool, they may have to retrain, but they shouldn't lose what they've already worked so hard to build in the process. That's why Social Security and Medicare are more important than ever. We shouldn't weaken them, we should strengthen them. And for Americans short of retirement, basic benefits should be just as mobile as everything else is today. That, by the way, is what the Affordable Care Act is all about. It's about filling the gaps in employer-based care so that when you lose a job, or you go back to school, or you strike out and launch that new business, you'll still have coverage. Nearly 18 million people have gained coverage so far. And in the process, healthcare inflation has slowed, and our businesses have created jobs every single month since it became law. Now, I'm guessing we won't agree on healthcare anytime soon. But, oh, applause right there. Just a guess. But there should be other ways parties can work together to improve economic security. Say a hardworking American loses his job. We shouldn't just make sure that he can get unemployment insurance. We should make sure that program encourages him to retrain for a business that's ready to hire him. If that new job doesn't pay as much, there should be a system of wage insurance in place so that he can still pay his bills.
Whoa, wage
and
insurance?
Even if he's going from job to job, he should still be able to save
there should be a system.
Take his savings.
Wait a minute, I missed that. There should be a system of wage insurance.
Economy work better for everybody.
That somehow we.
I also know Speaker Ryan has talked about his interest in tackling poverty. America is about giving everybody willing to work a chance, a hand up. And I'd welcome a serious discussion about strategies we can all support, like expanding tax cuts for low-income workers who don't have children. But there are some areas where we just have to be honest. It has been difficult to find agreement over the last 7 years. And a lot of them fall under the category of what role the government should play in making sure the system's not rigged in favor of the wealthiest and biggest corporations. And it's an honest disagreement. And the American people have a choice to make. I believe a thriving private sector is the lifeblood of our economy. I think there are outdated regulations that need to be changed. There is red tape that needs to be cut. There you go. See? But after years now of record corporate profits, working families won't get more opportunity or bigger paychecks just by letting big banks or big oil or hedge funds make their own rules at everybody else's expense. Middle class families are not going to feel more secure because we allowed a tax on collective bargaining to go unanswered. Food stamp recipients did not cause the financial crisis. Recklessness on Wall Street did. Immigrants aren't the principal reason wages haven't gone up. Those decisions are made in the boardrooms that all too often put quarterly earnings over long-term returns. It's sure not the average family watching tonight that avoids paying taxes through offshore accounts. The point is, I believe that in this new economy, workers and startups and small businesses need more of a voice, not less. The rules should work for them. And I'm not alone in this. This year I plan to lift up the many businesses who figured out that doing right by their workers or their customers or their communities ends up being good for their shareholders. And I want to spread those best practices across America. That's part of a brighter future.
See, rather than having freedom, he believes in spreading it using the government and force. Gonna go back to the phones and let John from North Carolina come back on. It's a rare thing that we allow somebody to come on twice. But John, you got the floor, my friend.
Thank you very much. But that's exactly the comment I was talking about earlier. He just said it. If you have a good paycheck and benefits, and bang, you're probably sitting in this room, and you just now heard it. That's what I was alluding to earlier.
Yep.
And it's wrong. It's wrong, and that's why I think that you got to have the terms. You got to have the terms of a certain amount of years, and then you do your thing. And you're out. You're done.
They certainly are not feeling our pain as the private sector has gotten rid of pensions. It's gotten rid of benefits, and you're basically you're pretty much on your own. And the guys in that room, many of them have been there forever. They became millionaires by being in Congress, and a certain amount of them accomplish something and have something to contribute. But at any rate, what about this whole entitlement mentality? Have you ever heard of wage insurance?
Yeah, and I don't like it.
Who's insuring against that risk? Who pays that premium?
Probably you and I.
Yeah, it just sounds like more socialism. I've never heard of it before.
Yeah. They keep on propping up the government. Although they say it's getting less, and I disagree. But nobody's helping me out, and I don't mind. I really don't mind. I'm going to keep my family. I just got done putting most of my daughters through college, and off the hip. I didn't ask for any grants, any help from any kind at all. But it just irritates me to it just upsets me. Something awful.
Yeah, I can tell.
And you know what I'm doing? I'm paying for somebody else's kids or several other kids to go to school after I just got done putting my own kids through school.
Yeah.
No.
Hey, let's make it free for everybody.
No
illegal aliens and the like.
Yeah. Put them all in the same category. But you know what?
Yeah.
The kids are through school, debt-free. Good Lord. And I bought them vehicles. I don't know what would happen if they had and they don't know what they'd have to do if they had to pay their real bills. But I'm sick of it. I've had it. I'm done. Now I am done with my kids, and I'll help anybody that wants a little bit of a handout. I'll give it to them. But it does ruffle my feathers.
John,
like yours,
thanks.
I'm sure.
Thanks for the input. We're going to take our final break. And we will be back right after this. Hey, welcome back to the Radio Free California Network. We have been picking apart the last dance of Barack Hussein Obama. And we're going to go back to that. I'm going to skip forward a little bit. He starts talking about ISIS, and it's hard to believe this guy's the president. Just listen. Let's bump to like 33. It's hard to imagine someone who is less commander-like in the role of commander-in-chief. Everything he says, he dismisses as if it is simply like he's talking about going to the grocery store and buying groceries. Here it is.
We don't need to build them up to show that we're serious. And we sure don't need to push away vital allies in this fight by echoing the lie that ISIL is somehow representative of one of the world's largest religions. We just need to call them what they are, killers and fanatics who have to be rooted out, hunted down, and destroyed. And that's exactly what we're doing. For more than a year, America has led a coalition of more than 60 countries to cut off ISIL's financing, disrupt their plots, stop the flow of terrorist fighters, and stamp out their vicious ideology. With nearly 10,000 airstrikes, we're taking out their leadership, their oil, their training camps, their weapons. We're training, arming, and supporting forces who are steadily reclaiming territory in Iraq and Syria. If this Congress is serious about winning this war and wants to send a message to our troops and the world, authorize the use of military force against ISIL. Take a vote.
See, right there. That's it. Right there. He puts it on Congress, talks about bombing them, talks about, giving us the right to go to war with them. This the president who claimed he ended the war. He's actually a war monger. But here's the problem, Barack. They killed 14 in our community here in Southern California, in a small, medium-sized American city, because of your policies, because of the failure of your government to keep out a jihadist. She got in here, she hooked up with another jihadist, and they killed 14 people and wounded 21. What do you have to say about that? I didn't hear anything about that. You're bragging about how you've done this and done that and bombed this and bombed that. And you talk about allies as if it's really strange. You almost consider Iran a closer ally than the UK or France. And I think most Americans, if you were listening closely to that speech, you realize you were not listening to an American president. And I don't think I can make a harsher criticism than that. Thanks to Sean McNeil, our chief engineer, all of our sponsors, and you. God bless you and Godspeed. Tim Donnelly Show out.